to our guest speaker from the University of Catalunya, Universitat Oberta de Catalunya, Xavier Baró Solé. I have printed your biography, and I will read briefly while you arrange your presentation. Xavier Baró is a professor at the Universitat Oberta de Catalunya in Barcelona, which is a university offering mostly online activities. He has worked also at other universities in the area of Barcelona, and he has a PhD from the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona. He is speaking to us about first results from a European project which is called TESLA, and especially about how can we solve the assessment issue, the certainty of assessing the right person in an online environment. Thank you very much, Xavier.
Okay, thank you for the invitation. From they asked us to present the TESLA from a technological point of view. So I will try to explain the technology behind TESLA, but in an educational context. Just stop me if you want to ask anything. I will try to make it easy. Let's see. So, as we are in an education conference, I will make the background, more or less. This is our context. We are working on e-learning, assuming that nowadays everybody is using internet for assessment, for activities, for everything. We are working with many different LMSs, BLEs, so the context in all the universities, it's really different. The teacher, now it's like a facilitator. Learner should be more or less autonomous. Okay, sorry. We are working in a context with knee assessment based on a continuous assessment, feedback, and so on. I think that it is true if you are in a traditional university, sorry, but I guess that traditional university do not exist anymore. I mean, a university only with a classroom like this, but no internet, no LMS, not BLE, do not exist anymore. Okay? So, in our context, we based the TESLA project. It's based on the assumption that all the universities are blended or fully online. In our case, we are fully online. And we use ICT for assessment for activities. And there are many proliferating tools for automatic assessment. And in most of the universities, in the blended ones, it's obvious because the face-to-face exams still are there, but in the blended or online universities, we use on-site face-to-face exams to ensure that the learners are who we expect that they are, and to provide some guarantees on the final degrees that we provide to the learners, so we use this method. the on-site or face-to-face assessment, it's considered the most reliable method to assess. We trust on this method. We have used it for many years, so we trust it. But all of us knows that it's not perfect. People cheat on exams, it's true. In fact, when we make an on-site exam, we put some teachers or some people just looking to avoid cheating, so we know that it happens. Okay, we can invent many things to improve the on-site assessment. There are really sophisticated systems, real. But in any case, we all know that our learners are improving faster than us. So, okay, just to say, because when we talk about Tesla, everybody asks, but it's safe, can learners cheat? The answer is yes, but in the traditional way also. So we try to get something better than what we have in e-assessment, but at the end we are in the same scenario, so yes, learners can cheat. Okay? So the starting point of Tesla was to see that ICT is used, introduced, and the learning framework evolved a lot in the last years, but the e-assessment is more or less the same. We are not introducing a lot of improvements in assessment. And we really think, and in our case it's our life motive, because we are in an online, fully online university. So we really think that ICT can improve the e-assessment, and we can give to the assessment more credibility. So it's like a fight for the online universities to say that our learners learn and our degrees are valid degrees as a face-to-face university. Okay? So this is one option that we can improve, and we can help our university, but the other online universities to say that online universities also are valid universities. Okay? Okay, so the challenge here is to update the educational process through the updating or improving the assessment. And the best solution to that, we don't know which is the best, but we think that the solution is based on authentication and authorship. And in my university, they think that is this way to improve. From some years ago, we started with not a project, but a group of people working what's called the e-exam on 2003. This was just an exploratory work. They look at security mechanisms, they look for different contexts, also pedagogic frameworks, e-assessment frameworks, all this stuff. At 2011, the computer science faculty decided to create a small group of people working on this. I was in this group as an artificial intelligence expert, so I'm not from the learning. Sorry, I say something strange for the learning field. And we just, what they asked to us was just to look and propose things in a more or less informal way, more scientific way, that practical one. And we started working on that and make a small pilot with our learners. We introduced some common tools like Skype. Just make a small Skype with some learners to make some short questions about the exam, about the activities, and the price, if they accepted this, was to don't go to an on-site exam. Some of our students, because of the crisis, because of the context that we are having, go to work outside Spain. We have some on-site places in Spain, in different places of Spain where they can go for the final exams. So the people living abroad needed to come back to Spain and make the exam. So the price for those students that accepted this was to avoid this, this displacement. Okay? And 1 year later, the initial idea, or what they tell us, was that we had 3 years to work on that. Just next year, the university accept this challenge and create an institutional project to work on that. So we needed to work really fast, and we started making some prototypes, which is the seed of the Tesla project that I will explain now, and start working with different faculties. The idea was to do not rely only on technological degrees, because it's more or less easy, because the learners knows about the technology, so it's easy to ask them to use certain tools, but also in other kind of degrees where maybe it's not easy to ask to a learner to use certain technological tools. And we tested it, it more or less worked. We see that learners are not against this kind of technologies. That was our first fear, that they say, no, I don't want that you take a picture of my face or this kind of things, but they are happy on that because they understand that this is a good point for their certificates. Okay, so I will present the Tesla project that started the last year. Just fast, this is a Horizon 2020 project in the technologies for better human learning and teaching. It's an innovation action. That means it's not a research project. It's an applied project. We need to provide a final product that can be sold and can be used in different institutions. And the main point of this project is that we need to perform large-scale pilots. The main pillars of the Tesla project are basically the adaptation. We need to adapt to the different institutions that there are in the higher education system. It means different LMSs, different assessment models, different educational models, different kind of degrees, etc. We need to respect privacy. We are working with learners' data, and privacy is really important. It's not here, but also ethics. It's something that we take into account in the project. We are working on innovation. We are using technologies from other fields to improve education, in this case assessment. And we are based on trust. That means our solution is try to provide some trust on the assessment system, on the e-assessment system. And of course, we are working in a higher education institutions, so we need to take into account the quality, and quality means that the quality agencies don't see anything strange in what we are doing, so it's easy to explain them what we are doing and why. Okay? And to do that, we create a really big consortium. We have 8 universities, we have 3 quality agencies in the consortium, 4 research centers, and 3 companies. Okay, well, I will not enter, but we have people devoted just universities that are only in the pilots, so they are testing Tesla in their universities. There are some research centers devoted to provide tools to the Tesla system for face recognition, for voice recognition, etc., for the different instruments that I will explain later. And we have the quality agencies that are putting more or less the guidelines on the quality aspects of the project, what we need to ensure from an assessment point of view, from a higher education system, in order to be aligned with the European guidelines. Okay, the goal at the end of the project is a little bit to reduce the gap between what happened in the teacher side and what happened in the student side regarding to the assessment process. Okay, about trust between teacher and instructor and learner, or the cheating temptations of the learners in some cases, or normal problems that learners have when they are assessed, like connection problems when they are submitting big files or something like that, and can be a problem in the assessment. Okay, this is the formal definition of the Tesla project. I will go fast, but basically the point is we are based on authentication and authorship. We had big discussions about authorship. We are based on authentication from the technological point of view, but we think that authorship is closely relates to authentication. So if I can authenticate the learner continuously, it's quite difficult that the learner is not the author of what the learner is doing. But I know that in the learning field, authorship, it's another thing, but we are working on both. Okay. In addition to what the important thing of Tesla that it provides a system for that, as we are working with learners, a lot of learners and some sensible data, we have one partner that only works on privacy aspects and ethical aspects. And this is the big war in this project because probably all of you had at some moment to ask for consent to your university, or just to collect the data for, I'm not sure, the organizers of this conference, just the paper to sign. We need to authorize that they record us, for instance, and probably this university put some lawyer to make this paper and so on. So extrapolate what happens when you take 7 different universities, record data from the learners, that means video, audio, and many kinds of data, extract biometric data for the learners, and make it in a system which is a European project. So it's not a final system in the university. So the legal aspects of the project are really huge. The large scale pilots are organized in 3 main blocks. The first pilot was at the first year and was a pilot think just for organization, coordination between the partners and to start working on the legal aspects. The second pilot just finished the last June, sorry. In this case, we involved more than 3,000 students. And right now we will start the third pilot, just you have the idea where we are now. The third pilot that have two phases, and in the first one we will involve more than 7,000 students, and in the second one we will involve between 10 and 14,000 students. In those pilots we are using the Tesla system, what we have right now, because the project ends the next year, so we are just in the middle of the project. And all I will explain you is in this context. So it's work in progress from a technological point of view, and some results from the pilots that we performed, more explicitly the second pilot, where we have some analysis of the opinions of the learners and what we have from a numeric point of view. So let's move. All the interaction, or where we can work, it's in the interaction performed online. So I mean, if it's a blended university, in the part that it's performed online, not in the on-site education. And this communication between the instructors and the learners, it's performed through the LMS or the BLE. What we do is to add a plugin to the BLE that allows to communicate with Tesla. Basically, this is the technological architecture. And this plugin, what does is to work about the pseudo-anonymization management. That is, here, all the learners have name, surname, address, phone, email, all the data. We don't want to manage this information. So once any data is sent to the Tesla system, we remove this information. We create a random number, that is the Tesla ID, and we just work with that. So Tesla, it's not aware about the gender of the person, the age, the name, or any problem that this learner can have. If it's a student with special needs, we just need to know that it's a student with special needs, but we do not need anything else, and we need this information just to disconnect some instrument. For instance, we found people that had problems in the face due to an accident or something like that, so we need to tell Tesla disconnect face recognition because it will not work, so do not make any alarm to the teacher in this case because it's a special case, but no extra information is required. It also allows to manage the informed consent of the learners. All the learners need to accept to provide the data and need to have all the information about what we will do with this data, when this data will be removed, and why we are capturing the data. And this is the informed consent. So this is a process that also is managed in the plugin to inform Tesla. If the learner does not have signed this informed consent, Tesla will not accept any data from this learner. Okay. Access to the Tesla instruments. I will explain the instruments now. And basically get the Tesla reports and many other information. From the point of view of a teacher, basically it will see the instructor tool, which is a part of the plugin, which is some additional options when the teacher creates an activity on the LMS that will allow to activate Tesla and select the instruments that the teacher wants to use. In the case of the learner, just will see some advices on the use of Tesla, which information will be captured, but in the same LMS, so nothing else changed. And the idea is that Tesla will provide additional information to the teacher regarding the activity. Information related to the trust about the learner authentication, or in the case of the plagiarism tool, so if there are plagiarism or not in the activity. Okay, this is some information, extra information that the teacher will have in the LMS to decide if the activity is okay or not. So, what are the instruments? The instruments are the main point of the Tesla system. We consider instruments like a black box. That means we do not care about what the instrument is performing or how the instrument is performing. Okay? It allows us to change the instruments, to add new instruments if it's required. And basically, we are working with instruments that work for authentication, authorship, non-repudiation, and integrity. The current instruments that we are using are a selection of the instruments that we can use with standard hardware. So, using what the normal learners have at home, we can assume that they have a webcam, a microphone, and a keyboard. So we are only using instruments that can work with this hardware. There are many other instruments that can be used, but relies on different hardwares. For instance, fingerprint reader. Many new smartphones have a reader for the fingerprint. We can think on add this kind of tools in the near future, but at this moment we cannot ensure that all the learners have it. Digital tablets for handwriting. It can be used also to authenticate a user on the way it writes. Or, for instance, the certificates that we have in the electronic passport or the ID card of many countries already have an electronic certificate that allows you to contact with the administration and perform some actions online. Okay? We can add this. And if some university thinks that this is required for their assessment process, can think on a bigger set of instruments. Okay. When you use authentication instruments, you need to learn a new concept, which is enrollment. And enrollment is not like enrollment to a course. It means to take information from some person to create a model of the person. Okay? So we create special activities to capture this information. And in an ideal world, and it's something that the people working in biometry put it as a requirement, even when we move to the educational field, we can make it soft requirement. It should be a controlled environment. It means if I want to capture the data of a learner, the face, I need to ask the learner to come here, ask the ID of the learner, be sure that it's the learner, then capture the data, because this data will be the reference data. Okay? So, I will move fast on that. This is an example of what enrollment means. It's more or less a 2 minutes machine learning class. Basically, there are, imagine that we want to authenticate, make authentication system for geometric figures. It's the same if they are learners. There are the first step, which is feature extraction. This is basically to take the input and explain this input in a numeric way. In this case, we just select the number of sides and the diameter of the outside circle, the minimum circle that get the figure inside. Okay? So this triangle can be described with 3 and 2. That's easy. This one with 3 and 4. Okay? So those are the features that describe the triangle. This square have this description, this square have this description. So this is the enrollment. I take data from one learner, data from the other learner, and describe it in a numeric way. So I have, in this case, 2 samples for each learner. Think on that it can be 2 videos of the learner, 2 audios of the learner, 2 documents of the learner, whatever. Now, I want to say if the learner is who I want it is, so the person that put the name. What I do is, okay, I want to authenticate this new figure and say, is this learner, so the triangle learner? Okay, let's do the same. We explain this figure in a numeric way. We put it here and say, no, it's outside of the model. So those were the samples of this learner. This is not part of this learner. Okay, it's too far from the samples I have. Is this a triangle? In this case, I say the same and say, okay, I authenticate the learner. And what happens with this? Is this a triangle? Okay, I get the information and say, no, it's not a triangle. But in fact, it's a triangle. What happens here? This means that the enrollment was not good enough. Okay? And this is a key point. Enrollment are activities that are not part of the assessment. We need to ask to our learners to perform additional activities to capture this data, which is really important to an authentication system to work. Okay? If the information is not enough, the authentication system will not work really good. So that's all. That was just an example to understand what's coming. Just what are the instruments? I will not enter in the technical details, but these are the features, the numeric descriptions in any case, and the models. Just you have it here. But the instruments are face recognition. The bulbs in green means that requires enrollment. And the input data are pictures or videos of the student. The goal is to see if the student is the person which is in the picture. So the output at the end is a verification score between 0 and 1. 0, it's not the learner. 1, I'm pretty sure that is the learner. Okay? You can think here, for instance, in the distance between 0 and 1, how sure you are from this learner. When to apply or where to apply this? You can capture the video while the learner is performing activity, or take an assessment activity, which is to deliver a video and process this activity. Okay? The same with voice recognition. It's mostly the same, but we work here with pieces of audio. Can be an audio that learning course that the student delivers on a speech exercise. It also requires enrollment. Face recognition and voice recognition anti-spoofing. This is a different type of instruments that are not worried about the identity of the person, but in finding cheating, more or less. So in face recognition, anti-spoofing, what this instrument is trying to do is to see if the images that are arriving to me are providing with a normal scenario, or the learner is trying to put a video or a mobile phone in front of the webcam, or these kind of things. Okay, so I got other kind of instruments. Keystroke dynamics. This is, again, an authentication instrument that works on the frequency of the keys that the learner is using. So while we are working, we are typing, sorry, we can get the times from when you press a key, when you release a key, between one key and the other key, and with those times, we can create a model. So we describe a person using this kind of times, and at the end, we are using exactly the same, providing a score on how sure we are about the identity of the learner. In this case, we can only use this instrument in real time, so while the learner is doing the activity. Then we have another instrument that analyzes the documents in order to authenticate the learner again. It's just telemetry. It gets some features on the text and create a model of the learner. And then we have a normal plagiarism tool that basically compares documents with other learners' documents. There are other tools that, in this case, I like this one because it's the only one that it's not against the learner. Yes, understanding that against means to try to find someone cheating. This one, it's a tool that allows to make a timestamp on an electronic document, and it means that the learner can provide you this document maybe 1 week after the deadline, and as a teacher, you can be sure that this document was the one that the learner had 1 week before, so if there is any problem with the connection, with the submission, and so on, you can accept this document, or maybe typical thing that the learner submit one file and not the other. You can say, okay, I'm sure that this is the document before the deadline, so I can accept it. Okay, so it's something good for the learner. Okay, this is a summary of all the instruments. I will move. The second pilot. The second pilot, we work with the 7 institutions of the project. That is the Anadolu University in Turkey, Open University of UK, Open University of Netherlands, the UOC, the Jyväskylä University in Finland, and I have in the list. Just to not forget any one of them. Sofia University and Technical University of Sofia, both of the Sofia, and yeah, that's the missing two. In fact, they're the coordinators of the pilot, so there to don't forget them. Here the idea was that each one of the universities put more or less 125 no, it's more, 300 or something like that per institution. Okay? Which is the cycle of a pilot. In a pilot, the students, first of all, sign the informed consent, take into account that everything is based on volunteers. So we ask our learners to participate or not. Okay. They can say no. Okay. So we ask for a consent form. Then they need to perform these enrollment activities that I explained to you. Some of them are easy. For instance, enroll for face recognition is just create a video of 7 seconds making like something like this. It's easy, but other, like the keystroke, requires to type some open text during maybe half an hour. So it's hard to ask a learner to do that. We divided it in different activities, so it's not a continuous half an hour, but okay, we need to ask them to do that. we need that. It's important because enrollment is important, but if we use all the data, maybe the learner will say, no, okay, I don't want to participate in the pilot. Okay, so we are in a trade-off between both. Then, after the enrollment activities, they go to the follow-up activities, which are the normal assessment activities, the continuous assessment activities, which any type in the LMS of the institution. In this case, all the universities are using Moodle, but it's in different scenarios, with the instruments of test activated. After that, we have, okay, for the evaluation, we make some questionnaires to the teachers, to the students, to the staff of the university that is involved. We need involvement of technical staff of the universities, legal staff, many people from the university. So we ask their opinion on all of that. Okay, we are doing a large-scale pilot, but we want to be fair, so we don't want to cheat in an anti-cheating project. So how we count a learner in the pilot? So if I ask to all of you if you want to be part of the pilot, I can count all of you as participants in the pilot, because maybe if you say me, no, I don't want, it's also a result of the project that the people don't want to participate in the pilot. But we use another metric for that. So we count that a learner was involved in the pilot if it signs the informed consent, complete at least one of the enrollment activities, and we have information of this learner in one of the follow-up activities. It means if there is any technical problem that prevents this learner to finish the activity, it's part of the pilot because we are testing the system, but at least we need to have the informed consent, enrollment activity, and some information on the follow-up activities. Okay, this is one learner in the pilot that we count as a participant. Using this metric, these are the numbers of the second pilot from all the universities. The number of unique students, it means that if I have a learner in 2 different courses doing different activities, I just count this learner as one. Okay, even maybe he's using 2 different instruments, performing 2 different enrollment activities, but it's just one learner. And you can see here the numbers, and we needed 3,500. We get 4,600. Initial idea was that all those numbers should be more or less the same. Of course, it's not easy. Some universities, in our case, for instance, it's easy to involve people on that because they know the project from before, and we fight many of the bureaucratic words before. In the case of Anadolu, they have a lot of students, so acceptance rate of 1%, it's thousands of students, so it's easy. And there are other institutions that depends on who is trying to do that and the context, and if it's from a learning institute or it's just a teacher that it's expert in something, that it's in the project, it's easier or harder to get students on that. But we get the numbers. That it's the important point. And this is more or less how it looks now. It's the beta version, what we used in the second pilot. Now we have an improved version, but basically the information is the same. I said that everybody uses Moodle. It's true, but not exact, because Moodle can connect using LTI to other LMSs. So you can embed something of Moodle in your own LMS. And in the case of UOC, we have our own virtual environment, and we use this strategy because it allows to use Moodle without move the learners from your BLE to the Moodle, and without deploy the plugin for your BLE. But at the end, what we have is, this is our a virtual classroom in our BLE, and it have an activity for enrollment, and it have a follow-up activity. So when the learners go to the enrollment activities, they see something like that. This is the percentage of enrollment for each one of the instruments that require enrollment. In this case, these learners have all the enrollment done. And if the learner does not accept the informed consent, the first time it tries to do something with Tesla, it goes to the informed consent. So we show the legal document with all the explanation, and we ask the learner to accept it. In the case of a learner that did nothing in the Tesla, it is the view of the enrollment, everything at 0, so the learner can click on the required enrollment and perform the enrollment activities. This is an example of the informed consent in our case. In the second pilot, we involve, this is just the UOC, because they are putting all the information together, so I just take the information of my university, which I have everything. If you look to the list of courses we apply at Tesla, you will see that are different faculty courses, and there are different topics. So what we wanted to test if this kind of instruments can be used in different scenarios. And we saw that yes. In fact, those are the instruments: face recognition, voice recognition, keystroke dynamics, forensic analysis, and plagiarism tool, which courses use each of the instruments. So the instruments work in different contexts and scenarios. Okay, and this is the number of students that use it in the UOC cases. And one of the important things is we get this value that for us it's a really, really good value. That means we ask it to our learners to participate in the Tesla pilot, and from the ones that make the first click just to accept the informed consent, to the ones that finally were counted as participants or perform enrollment activity and a real activity, we have a 70% of pilot success, or I don't know how to say this number. So it's good, because we count on 50%, they are volunteers, they have many work to do, and they accept it and follow the activities, so it's good. Okay, this is more or less some statistical information about the participants. Okay, we have more or less balanced in gender, not as good as we wanted, but it's okay. Take into account that we ask for volunteers, so we cannot make a population with a half and a half, so we are asking to everybody if they want to participate. This is strange maybe for some kind of universities, the age of the participants. We are a long life learning university, so the ages of our students are not young students, but we already have some of them. Maybe most of the universities are here, something like that. Most of them are people that it's already working, so ask them to participate in the pilot. It's ask them an extra work. And okay, most of them are vocational students, so are people that don't need the certificate, are working and wants to improve their knowledge about something or progress in their current job and so on. some other interesting statistics about the students' perceptions. So what the learner says us about Tesla. The advantages of using Tesla versus the disadvantages. I will just highlight some of the points. The one that for us was the most important thing, that we thought that was the biggest advantage of using Tesla, that was to avoid to go to the on-site exam. Okay, it's a little bit more than the half of them say that it's because of that. But improve the assessment rigor, something like they see it as a good point to say, I'm doing that and I'm the person that is doing that, and it have some rigor and it's accepted and it's a valid certificate. This is a point that it's really important for them. And okay, save time, and assessment, it's better because they are working, so the limitations of on-site exams with the time when they have to perform the assessment, it's a problem usually, so they say that it's good for them. And okay, in the disadvantages side, most of them, some of them say that there are not disadvantages. We do not agree a lot of that because we think that there are. But mainly, they say about, or they talk about the extra effort that they needed. This is the enrollment activities, so we know that is a problem. And some of them are not happy to share the personal data, but not too much, so it's good. And okay, I will skip this because I think that I'm not with, I don't have a lot of time. I have 5 minutes, so I will. It's innovation action. It means that we need also to have a work package for dissemination and exploitation. And I don't try to sell you Tesla, don't worry. But on the third pilot, we will try to involve other institutions. Not in the first phase that starts now in end September, but in the second, which is in January, February. So if you are interested, this is the commercial video. I don't used to refer to this video so often, but I will do an exception. I will make an exception, basically, because you will see the integration
online
on
assessment
Moodle.
and authorship
So
secured.
how it looks like.
Tesla combines in one easy-to-integrate solution state-of-the-art technology to eliminate cheating in e-learning and to create more robust online education experiences. How it works. A new tool for your organization. It begins when the institution wants to connect to Tesla with its existing learning environment. Set up Tesla activity. The instructor creates a standard assessment or activity. Instrument setup. Accept agreement. The learner accepts the terms of use. Enrollment. The learner performs the enrollment. Keystrokes dynamics. Forensic analysis. Face recognition. Voice recognition.
Hi, I'm testing the voice recognition of Tesla.
Perform activity. The learner performs the assessment as usual. Submit activity. The learner finishes the activity. View learner results. The instructor can access to a full report of learner data samples to confirm authenticity and authorship of the user. Join Tesla project for the third round of pilots. Benefits for your institution. Be one of the first institutions to test drive Tesla. Worldwide reputation and promotion. Connect with other partners and pioneer universities. Provide priceless feedback to improve Tesla. Join Tesla project and give students the chance to test the system from January to June of 2018. Finally, teaching and learning online is as robust and secure as it.
Okay, that was to see the Moodle working, and that was what I wanted to explain you. Just had the conclusions one. But basically, that conclusion was what I tell to you. We are in the scenario where all the universities have some LMS, so this can be applied in any kind of universities. We know that on-site exams still are the more reliable way to do that, even they have problems. This is one of the main questions. People ask us, okay, I have a final exam, can I use Tesla? And say, okay, if you only want to use Tesla on your final exam, don't use Tesla, because if just ask the learner to get a video for the last exam, it's quite easy to cheat. If you want to do that, use it on your continuous assessment, because it's harder to cheat for the learner, because you need to cheat in all the activities that the learner performs. One of the importance is learners are not against these kind of systems. In fact, they like that institutions use new systems of this time. And no, Tesla does not avoid cheating. This is something that we need to put it clear. So I will be here if someone of you wants to ask something more concrete. I tried to make technological but not so hard. So if you have any question or comments.
Thank you very much, Xavier. You have described the world which is existing, but it seems in a distant future for many of us. I think I have a question, and then if possible we will make as well. In Italy, all university exams are considered law enforced in some sense. So looking at these people basically passed the exam always online without showing their IDs, without being present, is a sort of shock to me. Is it really working like that, or did you just use midterms, partial assessment in these courses?
Yeah, we are using in this way. So, but with the point I told before, to replace the final exam when you ask the ID card and everything by an exam, the same exam, but using Tesla, it's not a good idea. But yes, you can think on that, because at the end, if you ask the learner, we are using partially in the pilots because it's not a final project, so the project is work in progress. But we are trusting on that for some courses. For us also the exams are a really important point where we ask the identity of the learner, and it's an important step on the assessment of the learner. But if you use this kind of systems, Tesla because it's the one I present to you, but many other systems for all the activities that the learner perform, I think that it's safer than the blended one with the final on-site exam, because at the end the learner needs to cheat in all the activities that he's performing.
Thank you. Is there some question from the audience?
I was looking at the data and thinking about the perception of students, and I saw that the main problems you had actually is about the enrollment part. So clearly, right? And I was wondering whether you have any idea about how to make it more interesting for them. Say, because nowadays there are lots of things about gamification, persuasion theory, these kind of things to convince people to give you data valuable than to recognize them better. The second point is that the second question, actually, briefly, is about the fact that you have a consortium which is really spread across different countries. First, I was wondering about the recognition, so how you really can perform a quality recognition if you have data across countries telling you where you are better or worse. And just a curiosity, whether you have any data concerning different ways of cheating that you might grab out of those data that you have there, besides the quantitative data which you have there.
Okay, well, I remember everything. But the first one, yes, enrollment is the biggest problem. I just tried to clarify why enrollment is important with a simple example I made. The learners see it as an extra activity that do not care about their regular activities, and hard to do, but they need to spend time. We tried different strategies to use all the activities for some kind of the enrollments, but the most hard to enroll is the case of dynamics, because in this case they need to be writing. So it's real-time activity. And it's one of the longest. But it's also the preferred by the learners, because they see this kind of activity as a less intrusive activity. And the biggest problem right now is that this is a pilot. And as this is a pilot, we take a learner and ask for the enrollment activity, ask for the follow-up activity, and so on. If this was the final implementation in the university, the enrollment is performed just once in all the degree. So maybe it's easy to explain that they spent 1 hour the first week of the degree to provide some data that will be used during 3, 4, 5, 6 years, depending on the kind of universities. So, this kind. Regarding the second question, the countries, the main problem of having this consortium abroad, it's the languages. And it's because any document must be translated to, I think that we are using now 7, 8 languages. So all the interfaces, everything that needs to go to the learner, documentation, and so on, need to be translated to many languages. This is the main problem we have, because all the software and all the algorithms provides from biometrics, most of them, and they used to deal with different ethnics, different languages, and different things.
Okay, other questions? We still have time for one. Okay, so thank you again, Xavier, and I switch to Italian. Una informazione importante per tutti quelli che non sono già stati in questa università è come muoversi. Allora, l'università avrete visto che ha un lungo corridoio d'ingresso al piano 0 e ha un altro corridoio sovrastante al piano 1 che connette tutti i segmenti di edifici, quindi A, B, C, D, E F. Quindi se siete in un'aula del tratto C e dovete andare in un'aula del tratto D, quasi sicuramente dovrete passare dal primo piano o dal piano 0. A piani diversi da 0 e 1 i palazzi non sono quasi mai connessi. Ciò premesso, dov'è che dovete andare adesso? Piano di sopra, D101, davanti a D101 c'è il coffee break. Grazie per essere stati qui. So I was